Welcome to Week 2 presentation of Chapter 8, Security Management Models. In the learning objectives, note we're going to describe the dominant InfoSec blueprints, frameworks, and management models, explain why access control is an essential element of InfoSec management, recommend a management model, describe the fundamental elements of key InfoSec management practices, and discuss emerging trends in certification and accreditation. First, let's start with an introduction to security management models. InfoSec models are standards, and therefore, because each InfoSec environment is unique, you may need to modify or adapt portions of several frameworks. What works well for one organization may not really work for another or fit it exactly. Blueprints, frameworks, and security models form the basis for the design selection and initial and ongoing implementation of all subsequent security controls, including policy, SATA, and technologies. Remember the word SATA? We talked about it last week. Another way to create a blueprint is to look at the paths taken by other organizations. Access control models. Access control is maintained by means of a collection of policies, programs to carry out those policies, and technologies that enforce policies. The general application of access control comprises 4 processes: identification, authentication, authorization, and accountability. Think about last week. We spoke about these and went over each individually. Access control is built on several key principles. Least privileged. Only allow access to what's really needed. Need to know. Only allow access to something that the user has to have to do their job and has the right to know it. And separation of duties. Splitting up tasks so that not one person has full control. It's hard because we all want control, but in this case, we split it up so not everybody has access to everything. In the categories of access controls, you'll find directive, which employs administrative controls such as policy and training designed to prescribe certain user behavior. Deterrent, which discourages or deters the incident. Preventative, which helps avoid the incident. Detective, which detects or identifies an incident when it occurs. Corrective, which remedies a circumstance or mitigates damage done during the incident. Recovery, which restores operating conditions back to normal. And compensating, which resolves shortcomings. On the left side, you'll see examples of controls, such as management, which are controls that cover security processes that are designed by strategic planners, integrated into the organization's management practices, and routinely used by security administrators to design, implement, and monitor other control systems. Operational, or also known as administrative, these controls deal with the operational functions of security that have been integrated into repeatable processes of the organization. And last, you see the technical row, that those controls support the tactical portion of the security program and have been implemented as a reactive mechanism to deal with the immediate need of the organization as it responds to the realities of technical environments. Mandatory access controls. These ratings are often referred to as sensitivity levels or classification levels. Speaking of classification levels, data classification model. The U.S. military classification scheme relies on a more complex 4-level classification scheme as defined in the Executive Order 13526, shown in your book. There are 3 levels of classification and 1 unclassified area. Those 3 levels are top secret, secret, confidential. A simple scheme for other organizations are public, for official use only, or for internal use only, confidential, or sensitive data. Security clearances. Most organizations have developed roles and corresponding security clearance, so Individuals are assigned into authorization levels correlating to the classifications of the information assets. Lattice-based access controls. The level of authorization may vary depending on classification authorizations that an individual possesses for each group of information assets or resources. So it's kind of a variation on the MAC form of access control. Non-discretionary controls. Role-based controls are tied to the role that particular user performs at the organization, whereas task-based controls are tied to a particular assignment or responsibility. Do you see the difference? Discretionary access controls. Users can allow unrestricted access, or they can allow specific individuals or sets of individuals to access certain resources. Most personal computer operating systems are designed based on the DAC model. There are other forms of access controls, such as content-dependent access controls. As the name suggests, access to specific sets of information is provided, but is dependent upon the contents. An example, accounting information for the accounting department. Constrained user interfaces. Some systems are defined specifically to restrict what information an individual user can access. You'll see this employed mostly at ATMs. And there's also temporal or time-based isolation. In some cases, access to information is limited by a time-of-day constraint. I know there's many parents out there using this for their children and their time on video games. So it's a temporal isolation. Security architecture models. With security architecture models, some models focus on the confidentiality of information, while others focus on the integrity of the information as it's being processed. Trusted Computing Base. The Trusted Computer System Evaluation Criteria, TCSEC, is also known as the Orange Book, and is considered the cornerstone of the series. TCSEC, however, was replaced by Common Criteria in 2005. In this context, security policy refers to the rules of configuration for a system rather than the management guidance document. System administrators must be able to audit or periodically review the reference monitor to ensure it's functioning effectively without unauthorized modification. Covert channels are unauthorized and unintended methods of communication. Stored channels communicate by modifying stored data. Timing channels transmit information by managing the relative timing of events. Under ITSEC, targets of evaluation, or TOE, are compared to detailed security functions specifications. This results in an assessment of system functionality and comprehensive penetration testing. The Common Criteria was widely considered the successor to both TCSEC and ITSEC. It reconciles some of the differences between the various other standards. Common Criteria, or CC, is a combined effort of contributors from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, France, Germany, Japan, the Netherlands, Spain, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Academic access control models. A state machine model is one in which the design follows a conceptual approach, in which the state of the content of the system being modified is always in a known secure condition. In other words, this kind of model is provably secure. BOP security rules prevent information from being moved from a level of higher security to a level of lower security. In short, for BOP, the principle is no read up, no write down. The BIBA model ensures that no information from a subject can be passed on to an object in a higher security level. This prevents contaminating data of higher integrity with data of lower integrity. For the BIBA model, again, the principle is no write up, no read down. Clark-Wilson integrity model. The change control principles upon which it operates are no changes by unauthorized subjects, no unauthorized changes by authorized subjects, and the maintenance of internal and external consistency. The following controls are part of the Clark-Wilson integrity model: subject authentication and identification, access to objects by means of well-formed transactions, and execution by subjects on a restricted set of programs. Graham-Denning access control model has 8 protection rights: create object, create subject, delete object, delete subject, read access right, grant access right, delete access right, and transfer access right. In the Harrison-Russo-Ullman model, or HRU, the thought is that since systems change over time, their protective states need to change. The Brewer-Nash model, or Chinese wall, requires users to select one of 2 conflicting sets of data, after which they cannot access the conflicting data. Let's talk about other security management models. One of my favorite models is the ISO 27000 series. It provides information on 14 security control clauses, addresses 35 control objectives, and has more than 110 individual controls. Its companion document, the ISO 27001, provides information on how to implement ISO 27002 and set up information security management systems. Here you see a visual on the major process steps for ISO 27001. There are also NIST security models. NIST documents have 2 notable advantages. They're publicly available and they're free. They've been available for some time and thus have been broadly reviewed and updated by government and industry professionals. Here's a visual representation of the Security Control Assessment Process overview. COBIT, Control Objective for Information and Related Technology, was created by the Information System Audit and Control Association and the IT Governance Institute in 1992. COBIT has 5 principles: meeting stakeholder needs, covering the enterprise end-to-end, applying a single integrated framework, enabling a holistic approach, and separating governance from management. Principles, policies, and frameworks are the vehicle to translate the desired behavior into practical guidance for day-to-day management. Processes describe an organized set of practices and activities to achieve certain objectives and produce a set of outputs in support of achieving overall IT-related goals. Organizational structures are the key decision-making entities in an enterprise. Culture, ethics, and behavior of individuals and of the enterprise are very often underestimated as a success factor in governance and management activities. Information is required for keeping the organization running and well governed. But at the operational level, information is very often the key product of the enterprise itself. Services, infrastructure, and applications include the infrastructure, technology, and applications that provide the enterprise with information technology processing and services. Committee of Sponsoring Organization, COSO, is a U.S. private sector initiative formed in 1985. Its major objective is to identify the factors that cause fraudulent financial reporting and to make recommendations to reduce its incidence. As you see on the slide, the objectives for COSO are effectiveness and efficiency of operations, reliability of financial reporting, and compliance with applicable laws and regulations. It's built on 5 components: control environment, risk assessment, control activities, information and communication, and monitoring. Information Technology Infrastructure Library is a collection of methods and practices useful in managing the development of operation of information technology infrastructure. Since it includes a detailed description of many significant IT-related practices, it can be tailored to many IT organizations. The core of Information Security Governance Framework includes recommendations for the responsibilities of members of an organization. Here you see the InfoSec governance responsibilities, from the board of the directors down to all employees. As you review the summary, pay specific attention that a security model is a generic blueprint offered by a service organization, and that access controls are built on the principles of least privilege, need to know, and separation of duties. Reflect back to your knowledge of identity, authentication, authorization, and accountability. We also spoke about the mandatory access controls and their requirements, as well as non-discretionary controls. Security architecture models illustrate InfoSec implementations. Don't forget that. And as you read this final paragraph, can you remember which one of these was the orange book? We also spoke about other security models, such as ISO 27001, my favorite, or NIST. We spoke about COBIT, COSO, and Information Technology Infrastructure Library. Do you remember which one of those was about financial information? And last, we talked about the Information Security Governance Framework. I thank you for listening to this presentation. There's another one for this week, but as you go forward, please remember to go back and review what you've already learned. It's important and it will help you as you go along.